This video is going to be a long overdue film study look at what Derrick Henry and the Ravens offense were able to do against a Green Bay Packers defensive front that really had no answers. From a personnel standpoint, a scheme standpoint, some of the things that they attempted to do early in the game, to be honest with you, not sound. And they had largely gone away from those options as the game developed, and it became obvious to everyone, what the Ravens' strategy was. Whether John Harbaugh, Todd Monken was calling some of these plays, I have my own suspicions, which I'll reveal a little bit over the course of the video. This was actually pretty easy for the Ravens to get done. I've got a number of plays queued up here, but to be honest with you, really going to focus on the first two possessions when Baltimore dropped a couple of 13-play drives on the Packers' head. So this first one is a 2nd and 1. I believe it's after an game-opening pass play to Mark Andrews from under center. So Henry in the I backfield with Pat Ricard, something that we saw a ton of on Saturday night. And this is just a lead zone concept. So it's 21 personnel, meaning we got one tight end on the field and then 2 running backs. What the Packers, I think, are trying to do is they're stepping this defensive tackle out, so he's going to step to his left, the bottom side of our screen, and then using this safety to kind of try to fill and occupy a run lane. You can see that he does get there, or a gap, I should say. He does, quote, get there. Falele is unable to combo and get off to him quick enough, but who expects a safety to show up that fast? The point is, we had a very simplistic game plan and presentation for what we were going to do offensively. Fortunately for the Ravens, Green Bay was unable to stop us from our primary method of attack, which is basically if we're in the I from a 21 personnel group, you've got a couple of plays that we present. We basically run power from a run concept standpoint. We basically run power to the 3-man surface, and I'll refer to that multiple times over the course of this video. So the 3-man surface is guard, tackle, tight end. Or we run lead zone weak to the opposite side, or we run toss to the outside. Now there's a little bit of a further explanation I'll provide later on about where and when we run toss. Basically, I believe we have some conceptual play calls in this game where Todd Monken or John Harbaugh is calling the concept that they want to see. And then Tyler Huntley's job was to walk up to the line and pick which side to run that concept to. It's the same play from the end zone angle to give you an idea of what I'm talking about with one of their defensive tackles. They did this often early in the game. I will say this. One of the things that occurred often in this game was that Roger Rosengarten was able to scoop backside defensive tackles. This really cannot occur from a defensive standpoint. It is happening because the Packers are stepping 96 out here and moving him in this direction so that they can insert the safety. Just a reaction that is not sound, in my opinion, to ask the safety to come down and play a gap. In my opinion, it's something that their defensive staff should have to answer for, and how they're going to try to stop a power running game. In this case, it's just a lead zone concept from 21 personnel, something that's been around for decades. Inserting the safety into the run fit, cool, that's great. But and they tried this multiple times. Evan Williams, a really good football player, number 33, don't get me wrong. But it just was not working, and they finally did go away from it from a conceptual standpoint early in the third quarter. So another formational tell that occurs here. This is still on the first possession. It's a 1st and 10, and we've gone 22 personnel. So 2 running backs in the game, still Ricard and Henry, and then now 2 tight ends. The formational tell that's here is 22 personnel slot I. It's basically a direct flow, outside zone lead stretch concept. Henry goes for 10 yards, and the idea here is that you got 2 tight ends on the field, one of which is to the right, Isaiah Likely, one of which is to the left, Charlie Kolar. By the way, I will focus on Roger Rosengarten multiple times during the course of this video. But in any case, the Packers have no idea about the directional tell here from a formation standpoint. We're running outside zone, lead outside zone to the second or the slot tight end side consistently, and this is dating back to Greg Roman era stuff. So this is one of the things that leads me to believe that John Harbaugh was involved more so with the play calling in this game because of how conservative the game plan was, how reliant it was on Derrick Henry. To great effect. It worked perfectly. You can see one more time the Packers are inserting the safety down, dropping the safety back. Kind of typical when you've got 22 personnel. They don't want to reveal their hand. Pre-snap, Falele this time is able to get to that safety who's spinning down because he didn't have to combo at all. He meaning Falele. There was no combo for him. In addition, and you will get the end zone angle, Roger Rosengarten consistently scooping these backside D tackles. So what I mean is he's cutting off the backside defensive tackle such that a larger lane is available to Derrick Henry to cut off of. Essentially, there's no resistance there once Henry commits to the line of scrimmage. We'll give the end zone angle so you can see what I'm talking about here. First play I showed you, it was obviously the defensive tackle stepping out. So some of what Green Bay did from a defensive tackle standpoint, the backside defensive tackle, put themselves in position to get scooped. This is just bad D-line play right here. Falele's not having to combo at all. He's just able to move up completely. Number one. Number two, check out the numbers deficit that the Packers are going to be at because of how effective we are at comboing this play with the center and then moving directly up with Voorhees. Voorhees goes immediately up to Walker. So we're talking about two guys winning one-on-ones easily with no help. Rosengarten scooping the defensive tackle, Linderbaum reaching the nose tackle. By the way, myself and my family have been pretty sick for about a week, so that's one of the reasons why this video took a long time to get produced, so forgive me for that. But you can see the nature of what's happening here. You got no inside linebacker presence at all, number one. Number two, from this four-man defensive front that the Packers have shown, at least on this particular play, they just do not have the requisite numbers to defend us with two three-man surfaces. And what I mean is we've got guard, right tackle, tight end here, and we got left guard, left tackle, other tight end, Charlie Kolar here, in their four-man defensive front, and they're getting ready to make a switch here in a moment. They do not have requisite numbers to handle the gaps. Unless they insert a safety down, which they tried to do a little bit late, Falele gets up to him. Voorhees gets up to Walker easily. Ricard on the lead. This is about as easy as it gets at the NFL level for Derrick Henry. Look, Derrick Henry's great, and he played fantastic. We deserve all the credit for the game plan and how we went out there and implemented it, how we went out there, basically beat their ass from a physical standpoint. When you allow any running back, average, below average, whatever, 12 or 13 steps to contact, meaning Derrick Henry's been contacted now. It's by the backside inside linebacker. But from the time the ball is snapped, you're talking about 13 steps that Henry was able to take. 12 or 13 steps before there was any resistance in terms of him being contacted at all. That's not a winnable situation for the Green Bay Packers. For any defense, that's not a winnable situation. Do not expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to play this type of really dead-on-arrival defense this week. As critical as I am to what the Packers did and realistic I think I'm being, I have to say this. This is a great play call from the Ravens, whether it was Monken. This is not a John Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh play. There's certain plays that the Harbaughs and Greg Roman have run for years, whether it was Baltimore, whether it was in Michigan, or in this case now where Roman is out in L.A. This is a 12 personnel group on 2nd and 10. We do not have a huge tendency to run the football with Derrick Henry on 2nd and 10. And in fact, some people, have criticized it in the past. I love this play call and this design. It's a 12 personnel group. So we got two tight ends set to the boundary in the case of Andrews and Likely. And I think this is expert usage of the personnel, number one. Because we're in 12 personnel, we've elicited the Packers 4-3 look. So they've apexed this inside linebacker out. So that is 58, who's their Sam. Then their Mike linebacker is here. This is the Will Edgerrin Cooper set into the boundary. It's a short motion, and normally that is pass. But, man, the way that we get this done, I call it down sweep. So first, using Andrews directly onto the Will linebacker is smart. He's a better blocker and more consistent than Isaiah Likely, who's tasked to loop around and go get the boundary side corner. You'll see why Likely is, you'll see another example of why Likely is unreliable at times. He basically doesn't touch the corner at all. But the down sweep concept, what is it? It's the front side guard, in this case Falele, kicking out the defensive end. It's a really simple block for us to get executed. It's a 4-3 look, so that edge defender has the outside gap. He's going to set this to the inside. They were really caught off guard by this play, they being the Packers defense. So the defensive end kicked out by Falele. That's the first part of what I call down sweep. The second part is Linderbaum pulling and then leading Henry through the gap. It's basically a gap or counter scheme type of concept. It's a gap scheme concept, with counter blocking, except you're not utilizing the backside guard. You're using an extremely athletic center. One more time to focus on Likely. He's tasked with going to get the boundary side corner. Doesn't touch him at all. If he does, then we're talking about Henry being totally one-on-one with the boundary side safety. I think that's Xavier McKinney. As it stands, really well blocked, smart play call, like I said, on a 2nd and 10 into the boundary. What I mean is, here's the ball where the ball is spotted. It's on the right hash for the offense, left hash from our perspective. Numbers-wise, they've got a real problem if they cannot get this Mike linebacker, Quay Walker, to cross the midline and get involved in this play. The scheme is oftentimes something that is set up for a speed back. At the NFL level, I should say, someone who's going to get to the hole quickly, off tackle, before the defense can respond. So check out what Linderbaum does by pulling and wrapping to go get the Mike linebacker. And then Falele, like I said, is going to be responsible for kicking out the boundary side defensive end. This is typically something that's run, in my observation, against nickel defenses. So from a formation standpoint, you have gone 11 personnel oftentimes, and you've elicited the nickel defender for the defense and forced him to line up to the field, which is where everybody wants to line him up anyway. Here, we've gone 12 personnel, so 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers. Remember, there's 2 wide receivers off screen here, and that Sam linebacker is forced to apex out. The trickle-down effect that has is keeping the boundary side safety lined up at a high side alignment, meaning he's not dropped down into the box. The field presentation, if you ask me, is a big factor here in kind of opening them up to this boundary side run. I think we caught them off guard, number one. I think guys did a really nice job blocking this up. Starting here with a down block by Rosengarten, there the kick out on the defensive end, and then Linderbaum wrapping to go control the backside inside linebacker, which in this case is the Mike. Kind of an option look by Huntley. Keep that in mind for later on. There's a couple of bigger runs where Henry has that we at least threaten Huntley to possibly keep it. In this case, he does not. Still on the first possession, it's a 3rd and 2. And again, it's so funny to me to know the Ravens offense and what I would consider to be hardball calls over the course of the years, and see NFL defenses with zero recognition, awareness at all. Granted, we're not a division opponent, but what the hell do these guys do during the week? What does their defensive staff do? This is 22 personnel, so we now have the ability to run power to either side. So what I mean is Likely is up here to the top side, Kolar is down here to the bottom. Where do you think we're going to run power based upon what we know about the Ravens tight end personnel, number one? Number two, Packers are finally in like a 3-4-5-2 defensive look or defensive structure. One edge defender here, another edge defender there. So they're probably just matching the 22 personnel group. Both tight ends are on the line, so we can theoretically run power to either side. In this case, we're running it to the bottom side of our screen or to our right. With Pat Ricard motioning across, I do suspect that this could be a directional play call. But getting back to the Packers for a moment, the design here is for them to get Evan Williams unblocked over the top of this power. I think they knew, that power was what we were going to run here, or that, it was a tendency, a tell, if you will. And Evan Williams is totally unblocked. Like I said earlier, I think he's a really fantastic football player, and they're getting him unblocked. Just shows you how amazing Derrick Henry was on that night, and he is anyway. So it's a downhill run by Henry, And then power, he's going to go underneath the kick-out block behind the pulling guard, which in this case is Voorhees. Watch him just skip away from Williams. There's Williams unblocked. I'll give you the end zone angle so you can see it. If you don't know why I'm marking the screen up so much at this point, it should be pretty clear. It's to try to keep the monetization of this video as much as possible so the NFL doesn't try to claim whatever little revenue we as content creators can generate on a per-video basis. So it's a great run by Henry. I don't know what the Packers watched on film to not have, a better answer for this. But what I will say is, and this is something that, gets talked about occasionally at times, but I don't know if it gets talked about in this manner at the NFL level. It's kind of an option-based idea. So I think that we've got a directional play call here. So the call is power. And it's Huntley or the quarterback's job to walk up to the line and see, okay, where do we want to run this based upon what the defense is showing? Do we want to run power to our right, the left-hand side of our screen from this perspective, or do we want to run it to our left, the right-hand side from our view? That may not be the case with this particular play, but because the two tight ends being on the field allows you that option. I think it's pretty obvious where we would like to run the ball from a blocking standpoint is to Charlie Kolar's side, away from Isaiah Likely, because of the inconsistency that he's got. But in any case, the kind of step in this defensive tackle out again, this nose tackle stunting to his right, our right on the screen, and then working Evan Williams 33 across to try to get him unblocked, and it's successful. It works. The only thing is Derrick Henry's just that good, right? And other safeties are going to be able to press that maybe a little bit more, sure. This is just Henry making one cut, getting away from an unblocked defender right at the line of scrimmage, and then kind of carrying a couple of defenders close. I thought, right around this moment, watching this live, I was like, oh, man, we're going to carry him into the end zone. His feet kind of got tangled up, only ended up going for 8 yards. I love this play from a 22 personnel platform. I would, to be honest with you, like to see us get in this 22 personnel look this week against the Steelers and then run the outside zone to either side. We could run the outside zone to the side where we have an inline tight end just as effectively as we could if, from that slot eye formation I showed you earlier, where the tight end on the other side, in this case Kolar, was stepped back off the line. Obviously, at this point, the tone has been set from an offensive standpoint. We've kind of revealed our hand. The Packers have adjusted a little bit, slightly. They're in their 3-4 defensive look. Once again, Van Ness, number 90, up there. And then the other edge defender down here, I think, is Enagbare. But notice where we run the football. It's related to the fact that we have a three-man surface to the right. Guard, tackle, tight end, we're running power. These are Harbaugh calls, in my opinion. He may not have specifically called this play call, this snap, but these are Harbaugh plays to rely on power in short yardage situations. We were not good at this earlier in the year. We really weren't, in my opinion, running power when it was kind of obvious what was happening. But in any case, here we go. We're pulling the backside guard. It's Voorhees. Watch Henry kind of take this a little bit of a bucket step, but it's by design. It's taught that way. It's for him to time up or sync up. Those steps are for Henry to time up or sync up with the blocking scheme and arrive there at a certain moment, a precise moment. You can see the edge defender, Enagbare, is trying to basically run over the top side of this, underneath or outside of Ricard's kickout block, but Enagbare runs around it. It's just not going to work, when you're running power. He does, I think, touch Henry, but not with enough force to be able to stop him at all. This is a great job, if you ask me, by, I think it's Rosengarten. So he steps first to the defensive tackle, defensive end, that Kolar will take over, and then he will work up to the Mike backer, Quay Walker, and I will give you the end zone angle of this one. The way that it works out is kind of funny. Henry goes off the set of down blocks, powers into the end zone, puts us up 7-0. Let me give you the end zone angle so you can see what I'm talking about. This is, not a directional play call. I do not think that this is basically Monken or Harbaugh saying, okay, we're going to run power, and you pick the side. They may not use those precise words. There's probably a one-word designation or term for it. But because we don't have that second tight end over here, we really aren't going to run power to the side. It's only a two-man surface. We got left guard, left tackle. We're not going to rely on the backside X, in this case Rashad Bateman, unless we're running, pin, pull, toss. But DN goes upfield, can't get to Henry. Ricard's angle, kind of like a little bit of a J angle, but not so much as maybe people draw it up on paper, is to safeguard against this technique. It's to safeguard. So by Ricard coming down a little bit, that safeguards against the DN being able to run down the line and go get Henry. Think of like some of those read option plays where TJ Watt just runs down the line, and totally disrupts everything. Here, there's at least some type of resistance. It's a power concept. There's Ricard, and he's got to go over the top. But in any case, Rosengarten, really nice job, man, to combo just enough with Kolar. You can see he kind of punches him there. And then he's got his eyes on Quay Walker at the same time. So once he moves up, he knows where Walker is. I think we get lost here a little bit here late, but Falele's got enough of that guy for a moment in a short yardage situation to allow Henry to get through. I'm talking about that defensive tackle that makes first contact there. It was Falele's guy. It's one of the things that's so frustrating about watching that guy over the course of the last 2 years is that you have all the angles to finish this off. And what I mean is you've got a superior angle to be able to pin this defensive tackle who did not play well on Saturday night at all, to be able to pin him down and collapse this whole side and not allow any contact at all. This defensive tackle against most starting offensive guards, you can see he's got inside hand position there with his left hand. We still get a touchdown, so you may say, well, Coach, why are you complaining about this? Because it's shitty offensive line play, and it's the fact that you have a superior angle and leverage to be able to finish that guy off who didn't play well, in my opinion, and you're unable to do so. Fortunately, it didn't matter because it's a short yardage situation, right, and we get a 13-play drive, but things like that will have popped up for the last 2 years, and they will continue to do so. I recognize that we're moving, a little bit slow here. My apologies for that, but if you tuned in, hopefully you saw the length of the video before you clicked. So we're moving into the second possession. The Packers, of course, scored in 2 pass plays, and a couple of penalties, made it look super easy. Malik Willis really shredded our defense. That's another issue altogether. It's 7-7 here, 1st and 10. So 21 personnel. And we only have one tight end on the field. So where are we going to run power? We're going to run power down here. We're going to run lead zone up there to the top side. We're generally not going to run toss when we've got Hopkins on the field, but all of our receivers are expected to execute those pin down blocks. So this is lead zone. And once again, you've got really, really poor a defensive line play from the Packers. But a lot of good stuff from our perspective. I think we've got Linderbaum and Falele comboing this nose tackle. Looks, really unathletic here. And then Rosengarten is going to cut off this backside defensive end. And we just totally obliterate their defensive line here and give Henry, that's any running back is going to turn that into a good gain. Henry is special, we know. But he also understands when it's time to just put your head down and get downhill, and this is one of those. So here's Rosengarten cutting off that backside guy. Here's the combo from Linderbaum and Falele, so they're getting that nose tackle moved vertically and then dumped back into the lap of the Mike linebacker. And you can see the safety trying to drop down again and get involved underneath between the nose tackle and the defensive tackle. Henry doesn't bust this one. I think it only goes for 7, maybe 8 yards, but our ability to get this done was fantastic. I am not going to sit here and say to you, however, that I suspect that we're going to be able to execute with this level of physicality against every defensive line that we face moving forward, including the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. We will not be able to blow open lanes, even though we ran for 217 yards the first time we played the Steelers. Lamar was involved in that a little bit. So was Keaton Mitchell. But we did a great job here, man. And one thing unmentioned, at least by me earlier, is, yes, we do get the cutoff from Rosengarten on that guy. A nice combo from Linderbaum and Falele. Voorhees is handling guys one-on-one in this game. And what I mean is, Not just a free release up to the linebacker level like I showed you with Filele earlier. I'm talking about an immediate 3 technique right in his face. That's 94. The same guy who on that goal line play I showed you earlier was able to escape Filele and make first contact. Voorhees is one-on-one with him. I don't even know who that player is, but he's one-on-one with him here, and we're able to get vertical displacement combo here with Linderbaum and Filele, backside cutoff with Rosengarten, and then we're at least stalemating this one-on-one. At the moment, I have it paused right now, but we've won that rep completely, in my opinion, from a one-on-one standpoint with the 3 technique. It took all of that to only get us 7 yards. Like I said, I recognize we're moving a little bit slow. This is a very next snap here. It's a 2nd and 3 on our second possession. Power to the tight end side once again, so it's a 3-man surface to the bottom side. It seems like the Packers finally understand. And what I mean is they're going to take the backside tight end away from the backside safety, away from the tight end. So this guy's aligned away from the tight end. This safety's lined up to the tight end, meaning he's on the same side. And they're going to allocate him down. So spinning down where we would be running either lead zone, again, away from the tight end, or where we would be running our pin, pull, toss play. And they're kind of beginning to recognize things, I think, from a formation standpoint. In addition, from an aggressive mentality. Watch Quay Walker come downhill here. Immediately, they're trying to collapse this in. So they've provided a whole lot more resistance here, if you ask me, in getting this inside linebacker Walker across the line of scrimmage, even before Henry arrives there, to match the puller. In this case, it was Voorhees. It didn't matter, though, right? We still get 5 yards. That's a situation where what they've drawn up, Green Bay, they think is going to succeed in holding us down. So what I mean is they've compressed this defensive end down. He's going to end up in the B gap. Walker, violent attacking, basically over top of the block from Kolar. This defensive end sets it. What I mean by that is he stays to the outside. He basically tries to knock it back in, doesn't spill it. And it looks like to me this backside safety might be reading the left guard at this point, meaning he's responding to the guard pulling and then trying to fold over the top. You can see Voorhees is unable to actually get to where he should because that defensive tackle stunted to the inside. That defensive end, actually lined up to the inside and goes on this path. Rosengarten unable to take him down and control him. So really disrupts Voorhees' path. Henry still kind of sneaks through there for a 5-yard gain. It was that kind of night for the for the Packers. Kolar, nice job, if you ask me, of getting to the backside will linebacker. McKinney, the safety who I spot shadowed or talked about in the beginning, is the guy that makes first contact with Henry. For solid contact, we still get 5 yards. They're coming up with, better answers. And what I mean by that is in some of our earlier run plays, whether it was, lead zone, stretch, power, whatever, 9 or 10 yards, right? And then 7, and now here we are 5. One of the same formations that we've been talking about this whole time, pro-I out of a 21 personnel group. This is on a 2nd and 7. The field has been flipped at this point, and we're going to run lead zone weak. So what I mean is here's the tight end to the top side, along with Zay Flowers, who's the Z receiver here. Ricard and Henry set up in the backfield in the I. It's lead zone weak. So the Packers, another answer that they have here, at least it appears to me, is they're spiking this 3 technique to the inside, and then they're expecting this inside linebacker to go play the B gap, and they've widened up this edge defender, possibly to account for our toss play to the weak side. In any case, Bateman's going to work up to the safety. I think that's McKinney, who's communicating to the boundary side corner that he's going to work up immediately. And so you can see what's happened here is the Packers are trying to make things happen a little faster. They're trying to give one look pre-snap, and that's the D tackle in the B gap as a 3 technique, and then spike him across Voorhees' face into the A gap, bring the inside linebacker, use the safety to drop down to basically replace this will linebacker so they're at least trying different things. It didn't matter. The collision or the block between Ricard and the will linebacker, Edgerrin Cooper, happens at or even behind the line of scrimmage, once again, that's usually an opportunity for the defense to succeed. But because we were so good here, this is probably one of the best games that I've seen Linderbaum play. He immediately works up, and Falele is able to take over or handle this defensive tackle with no combo. Henry cuts it off of that block, that defensive tackle, that nose tackle, 97. I don't want to say wins, but he definitely gets to the front side. So what I mean is front side, we're working here with Henry and Ricard. That's the front side of the play. That's the point of attack. This nose tackle is able to work across Falele's face, and then Henry's going to cut it back underneath there. Why? We've cut off the backside guy once again. That is a consistent theme in this game. Is that Rosengarten is able to cut off these backside defensive tackles, backside defensive ends on run plays that originally planned to go to our left. Obviously, this is a Derrick Henry game plan, but which could have been schematically a reaction to their D-line depth, which was pretty poor. We took advantage, right? Have to give credit to our offensive line, but I will continue to stress and mention to you, their interior D-line play was quite poor. I don't think it really would have mattered necessarily the quality of D-line play, but on the ending, the culminating play of the second possession is, of course, going to be an easy touchdown run for Henry. It's a power concept from a wing-eye alignment. So we've got Kolar and likely on the field at the same time. Andrews set up to the backside. We're running it to the front side where the wing is, trying to kick out this edge defender, which I believe is Edgerrin Cooper. Quay Walker, the inside linebacker, 7, kind of steps wrong here briefly. And, there's just no margin for error down there on the goal line. Not sure that it's going to necessarily work at all. Anyway, Van Ness kind of spiking to the inside. We're pulling Falele as the right guard. Maybe we've tightened our splits up a little bit. We're talking about Walker briefly stepping to this side and then trying to come back to the play side. He just, false steps slightly down here on the goal line. And even though he's unblocked, unable to get there quick enough to hold down Derrick Henry, one of the more easier touchdown runs that we've had this year. 13-play drive on the second possession, following up a 13-play drive on the first possession. Clearly, at that point, it was obvious to anyone watching that we had the ability to block their front. Moving forward a little bit to the fourth possession, I think we've made it 17-7 after the turnover, one of the turnovers that they had early on. I think the ball. I think that after the fourth down stop that we made, Roquan Smith and Tavius Robinson. So 22 personnel group, and when I said earlier on that it's quite predictable, this is what I mean. It's slot eye left. So the slot portion of this is that the second tight end Kolar is set up off the line, and that's typically where in years past we've run our lead zone. Sometimes it's inside zone, more often than not it's outside zone or stretch. That tight end alignment is a key. The Packers have matched with kind of a 3-4 look. This is a really great job by Rosengarten on the backside. I don't have him spot shadowed. I think I will give the end zone angle in a moment, but that's him right there. The intention or the direction of this play is to our left. That's the bottom side of our screen. We'll let this run through a couple of times. Hopefully it's not annoying to you when I do that and kind of rewind it slowly. I used to kind of abruptly go back to the beginning of the play. Hopefully this helps. If not, feel free to let me know. Rosengarten is cutting the guy off and then using his back to shield him from getting there. So it's not going to work against everybody. There's going to be some bigger, stronger guys. But Rosengarten's speed here is a factor. Henry getting downhill behind Ricard. You can see that the safety, Evan Williams, comes in and makes contact. I think it's Edgerrin Cooper, the inside linebacker, who's a second-year player, super talented, is the first guy, to make contact. Ends up being an 8 or a 9-yard gain. I think Linderbaum and Rosengarten are the keys, in my opinion, to this game because Linderbaum was able to win so many one-on-ones, first of all, and that allowed the guards to kind of focus on the players that they were responsible for. But in any case, Falele is working up here to the guy that Linderbaum is blocking, number one. Number two, Rosengarten is going to scoop this backside guy immediately. You can see there's no help from Falele at all. It's Rosengarten's job, and Falele's not supposed to. Falele's working up to the nose tackle with Linderbaum. Linderbaum's going to take that guy out. Linderbaum's going to move up as Falele takes him over. And then because he's caught up in the wall, I'm talking about 56, he's going to eventually go underneath here. He will make first contact, but Henry's already built up a wall of steam. Rosengarten, fantastic job in my opinion. This one really reminded me of a couple of games in the past, and the one that really popped up immediately while watching it, I think, was Tampa Bay 2022. I believe it's a Thursday night game. I could be wrong. It was a night where Linderbaum just took over in the second half, and the whole offensive line did. If you recall, we ran the ball down Tampa Bay's throat. Linderbaum scooping reaching three techniques, beating Vita Vea, among others, on outside zone concepts. This is another example of it. We're just quicker here in taking this guy over, number one. And then because this inside linebacker doesn't have really a good option, he goes underneath. Yeah, he does make first contact, but look where it's happening. The ball is pretty much on the line, on one of the 5-yard markers. 56 makes first contact 4 yards downfield. It's not a workable situation from a defensive standpoint for Henry to be 3-4 yards downfield, untouched at all on his tracks. In this case, like I said, I think it generated 8 or 9. It was a great call by Huntley. We've moved, a lot further forward here into the third quarter. Huntley definitely checks into a run here. I screen record to get the plays for various reasons. You can see that he's kind of giving this like circle motion with his right hand. And then Henry's kind of confirming. He's actually following Huntley around a little bit. So it's really cool. It's a split zone read concept. Really dual read is what I end up calling it normally. Between Huntley and Likely on the boundary side D end. It's a 2-high safety structure. One of 3 situations in this game where on third down we give the ball to Derrick Henry. How sustainable that is, I don't know. I love the fact that we had it in the game plan. I love the fact that Huntley had the confidence to go to it in this moment. Like I said, we're up 27-24 here. Likely and Huntley both reading that backside defensive end. You're going to get a combo from Voorhees and Stanley on the defensive tackle 91. 91 kind of slips and goes down. And then what that does is Voorhees is worked up to the will linebacker. Likely is reading the defensive end the same way that Huntley is. They're both reading that as a give to Henry. As a result, you'll see Likely's path go underneath of that defensive end. For me, when we're running this dual read, I would like to see the receiver go up to the safety. And then since Likely's reading it, most of the time, he's going to be responsible for the frontside inside linebacker. I'd like to see a variation where he works up to the boundary side corner. If we think that we're going to be able to get the boundary side inside linebacker, the will linebacker, blocked. Normally, we will use this combo to work up to the boundary side inside linebacker, and Likely or whoever's running the dual read would be responsible for working up to him, and we would leave the boundary side safety unblocked like we do here. It's a great job by Huntley of making this check. It's critical, man. It's a nickel look kind of by the Packers, even though they're in their base personnel group. That's the Sam linebacker. They've stayed in their base on third down because they recognize, what we're doing out of 12 personnel. It's a 3rd and 5, but we're still focused on running the ball. So they've adjusted and become a little bit more aware, in my opinion. The problem is the boundary side safety is just too late because he's in a 2-high safety structure, and the timing of this dual read allows us to get through here untouched and then snake underneath of or behind Likely. When I say that, I mean Henry. He goes underneath of or behind Likely and then gets on a downhill track, picks this up. Look, that's 9 yards on a 3rd and 5. Still onto the same possession. And this is the last play of the third quarter. In fact, the big one by Henry where he rumbles for 30 yards. I think this is a directional play call. I can't prove it. I obviously could be wrong. And what I mean is you've got this double compression to both sides. So this is likely as a wing / tight end receiver, whatever you want to call him. And then down here to the bottom, Bateman is a tightly aligned receiver into the boundary. Henry just converted that 3rd and 5 that I showed you. This is the very next snap. So it's a variation off of our what we used to call kind of pin pull toss. And we would pin down on a defensive end, like you see here, with Likely. And then as he would pin down, you would get an offensive tackle pulling and wrapping to go get out in front. We've kind of varied or altered that a little bit. Rosengarten is engaging this guy. It doesn't look like to me he's on a path to try to get to the outside. It's because we're running it out of the eye. So we don't need that tackle there because we got Ricard out in front. Great timing to get out to the corner. That's what fullbacks do on toss plays generally, is they get out to the corner, and Henry is untouched past the line. It's going to be rare for a free safety, a guy who lined up in the middle of the field as a free safety, to be able to bring down Derrick Henry, at or just beyond the line of scrimmage once he's got a full head of steam. And that's kind of what happens here, how smoothly Henry drops that stiff arm down. And then at the same time that he drops that arm down, it's not a violent stiff arm like we've seen in the past from Henry. And we actually saw one of those the other night. It's so smooth how he's able to clear his inside leg, his left leg here and feet, and get it over the top of that safety. Fortunately for the Packers, Cooper is extremely athletic. Otherwise, Henry could have been gone. I think this is a directional play call, once again, where Harbaugh or Monken has told Huntley, hey, we're running toss, and you just got to pick the correct side. That possession, I believe, ended with the touchdown to Zay Flowers on a 3rd and 8 and made it 34-24. This is the very next possession. This is after Malik Willis got hurt. So we go up 34-24. They're driving. I think they get down to like our 38-yard line, somewhere in that area. Malik Willis gets hurt or re-injures his shoulder on a throw, and then, we have the interception, fortunately. 3rd and 5, we go 12 personnel. This is huge to retain possession. I think it says a lot of things. Number one, we're deep into the game, right? We're into the 4th quarter. This should tell you what our coaches think about who they'll trust in these moments to try to convert if Lamar Jackson's not on the field. It's a one-high safety structure. The will linebacker, in my experience, has to come downhill and play this B-gap and set it back to the field side guys. The Packers have requisite numbers to be able to handle a run play or anything to this side. We're optioning them essentially here by leaving this defensive end unblocked. In my opinion, Cooper has to play downhill here, even though the defensive tackle actually ends up in the B-gap. To be honest with you, I'm talking about 94. You can see he kind of sheds Falele a little bit late. It's like 2 yards downfield. Linderbaum briefly comboed and then moved up to Cooper. Falele and this guy are one-on-one. 94 will, quote, win late by shedding him to the ground. It happens a couple of yards downfield. My problem with this from a Packers perspective is, for Cooper, all of your help is up here. Everyone is up here to help you. You cannot end up underneath of this and let Derrick Henry basically win to the front side. This is a very poor job from an awareness standpoint by them, but it's also a great job by our offensive line, making this thing happen. I don't know that we're going to continue to catch people by surprise here, to be honest with you guys, on 3rd and 5, right, and run the ball with Derrick Henry. We were 3 for 3, I think, in this game on some of these anomalous situations. Green Bay really couldn't make this any easier, for real. It's an option concept, like I said, reading this defensive end. We're getting, a slight combo from, let me move that out of the way, slight combo from Linderbaum and Falele on that nose tackle. Gaps can be kind of funny when you're talking about, this is not 11 personnel for us, but when you're talking about a nickel defensive platform, and what I mean is, on full flow, it's kind of like a dual reaction. So run to their left, you would expect to see this type of movement between Walker and Cooper. That's why I have it color-coded. Versus, let's say Henry was on the other side, and it's a run over here to their right, our right-hand side of the screen, then you'd expect to see this type of reaction. It's just different reactions depending on where the flow is. And since the nickel and the strong safety are both here, I just don't like the reactions of their inside linebackers as a tandem. It's a read on the defensive end. You can see Huntley is looking at Enagbare, the edge defender. And so they kind of play underneath of this. And what I mean by that is instead of playing it to the front side like I kind of drew up, Cooper kind of plays underneath of this. So does Walker. It just doesn't make sense to me. I get it from a gap standpoint. People are going to say, oh, well, the gaps, that's the gaps that these guys have. Well, it didn't work out, number one. Number two, a zone concept, the gaps are going to change. You got to be able to adjust. In my opinion, it's a very poor job by their defense of being aligned to the threat. Also really illustrates to you how powerful the option can be. It is possible that this is also a directional call, and that's why Huntley switched Henry's side. I don't know that people talk about that a lot. The only reason that I have some awareness of it is that I have a little bit of an option background and basically being around option people, and that idea of having a concept called but not the direction is something that I've seen people execute down as low as like 10, 11, 12 years old. I think their defense was obviously pretty much done. At this point, they were still competing, don't get me wrong, but they'd been had. And this is a great example of, still on that 8th possession where we're up 34-24. I'll show the knockout in a moment by Derrick Henry, the 25 or 26-yard touchdown. This is a play-action boot to Huntley that is really well designed. So we're taking the left guard and we're pulling him, and that's designed to hold or occupy this will linebacker, Cooper. It's designed to get him to react to that pull. Basically, make it look like power, which we've been running a ton. And then boot Huntley opposite of that. How would that work, right? Well, you got to get this guy moving in this direction, matching basically the pull from Voorhees. You can see that he steps with Voorhees. That's his visual cue. Unfortunately for the Packers, they've walked one of the safeties up, and he'll kind of hedge in this direction as well. As a result of that, Huntley on the boot, even though Ronnie Stanley falls down, Stanley's kind of, he's making it look like he's hinging on the backside. So because he's hinging, what I mean by that is he's going to cup on the backside of power and make sure that nobody on the backside can run through and really cause a mess. Think of Ray Lewis against the Chargers running through on the backside gap. A little bit different. Ray actually went over the top of the center's block, but Stanley is tasked with briefly engaging here like he's hinging on the backside and then working up to lead for Huntley out in space. We kind of lose our block out on the edge with Tez Walker, number one. But fortunately for us, both defensive ends, Van Ness and I think it's Enagbare, both of those guys have really no idea where the football is. And so Huntley, this is a great job to get the first down because, like I said, Walker loses against, I think that's Valentine, 24. And then Cooper, the will linebacker, who was unblocked. Remember, he was kind of given a false read, a false pull by Voorhees. He's actually the guy who's able to get there and front Huntley up. Huntley gets the first down. I believe their head coach challenged it like just outside of the 2-minute warning. This is a very smart play call. There's a handful of these on third down, right? This is a 3rd and 5. Some of the gives to Henry that are a little bit anomalous, that also, I think, kind of give away that Harbaugh was involved clearly. How much of that is going to happen against the Steelers? How much of that is going to work against the Steelers? Is Harbaugh going to be able to utilize the same game plan to just physically dominate the Steelers? I don't know. I mean, I can't say. I do know that their rookie defensive tackle being back is a big deal, especially where he's going to play. I'm talking about Derrick Harmon. He's going to play off their left side, so he's going to be matched up with Rosengarten and Falele. Are we going to be able to cut him off consistently on all these left side runs, these runs that begin to the left, as consistently as we did against the Packers D tackles? No, I don't believe so. In any case, we possibly have a directional call here. This will be the final play that I'll show. Huntley could come up and move, run the toss to the right with a one-word designation that the offensive line and the other blockers could hear. In this case, we run it to the left. The reason why I suspect it could be a directional play call, you'll see this safety move up once Huntley goes under center. So I think the Packers are on to this. I think, they're aware of the fact that we're making directional calls. A little bit of a lead toss variation. You'll see Ricard obviously get out in front. Henry going to get downhill. Well, it's a nice job by Walker. All he's got to do is get just enough of that defensive end / outside linebacker. I feel like he's been pretty good at this, to be honest with you, in 2025, of hand fighting with the guy. You're not trying to win a knockout. You're just trying to win a decision here by dancing around the guy, but being a little bit physical enough initially to get your hands on him and hold him down. A really nice job by Stanley of jumping through against that safety who spun down. We're talking about, I think this is McKinney, right? He started out here. Once Huntley went under center, he moves up. It's not coincidence that he moved up to the exact side where we're actually running the toss. I think they're aware of what's happening, but Stanley's going to move up and go get him, and that basically closes off the third-level defender, even though McKinney's at the second level of the defense at the time of the snap. He's a third-level defender. Man, when you operate without a third level of the defense, or when your third-level defender gets totally blocked, it's pretty easy for a run concept to end up popping like this one. Henry, great acceleration. He's fresh. He's ready to go here late in the season. Absolutely think that we can go in there and run the ball against the Steelers. Are we going to be able to do it this easily? Is it going to look like this consistently? I cannot stand here and tell you that it is. I would expect them to provide more resistance. I would expect the Steelers to have a unique, quote, answer for Pat Ricard in the I backfield. I do think that 21 personnel is going to be the swing point. And what I mean by that is when we go 22 personnel with Ricard as the fullback, you can expect to see a different personnel response from the Steelers defense. In the past, they have done some very unique things. They'll play a 5-3 look and take a DB off the field. Legitimately, I mean 3 inside linebackers, 3 interior linemen, D linemen, 2 edge defenders / OLBs, a 5-3 personnel deployment, and a 5-3 personnel reaction, and a 5-3 defensive formation. Having said that, there were other answers that they've had before that are also unique. I'll perhaps try to diagram them if I can get something done for Saturday morning. It took the better part of 3 days for various reasons for me to get this video done. We were traveling to visit family, number one. Number two, pretty much everyone in the household for the holiday party got sick, and so I had no ability to record this. I will say this, in terms of our run game, we're averaging 200 rushing yards per game in the last 5 weeks. 123 in the loss to the Bengals, the 32-14 loss or 32-16 loss. 217 the first time against the Steelers, a game that we should have won. Almost 200 yards against the Bengals, the 24-0 loss, 24-0 win, shutout win on the road. It was 189 to be precise. 171 in the home loss against the Patriots. Probably could have been 200 plus with another 3-4 carries to Derrick Henry, and we probably win that game. And we're standing here 9-7 instead of 8-8, even with the Steelers moving in. And then 307 to be precise against the Packers this past week. I do think we'll be able to run the ball against the Steelers. I do not think that we'll be able to do it in such a dominant fashion out of 22 personnel. Their answer to Ricard is going to be interesting. I do wonder about us going 22 personnel. See early. You can look for us to do that early. See what the Steelers' reaction is on 1st and 10 or maybe a 2nd and 5. And then maybe utilize or deploy Andrews and or likely as hybrid receivers to take advantage of the reaction that the Steelers present. That's what they've done in the past, either a 5-3 look or they had a very unique one in, I believe it was 2021, maybe 22, where basically they played a 6-2 look, and wherever Ricard went, whichever side he lined up on, they had an extra defensive tackle on the field. I think his name was DeMarvin Leal, maybe number 98 at the time. He's no longer with their franchise. But in any case, this was a fun game to watch on Saturday. Not as much fun to try to break down because of all the real-life factors that prevented me from getting it done in a timely fashion. So, I apologize for that. I recognize that it's way too late in the game to be getting my first film study out for the week, but the circumstances are what they were. is a fun film to watch offensively, not on the defensive side at all. I may follow up with something Friday, if I can, about our defense and how little faith I have in them against pretty much anyone who's able to read and react to your pass coverages post-snap. I didn't think we did a great job against Aaron Rodgers and those guys the first time, even though DK Metcalf was, pretty inefficient overall globally in that game. I think he did make some big plays, don't get me wrong. He had a 52-yard catch, but he had 7 catches on 12 targets. They will not have him as a weapon. They have relied on their veteran wide receivers a little bit more as the season has progressed, and I still think that Aaron Rodgers played a super smart game the first time that we played them that kind of led to our defense being exploited. It's going to be an interesting night on Sunday night. I look forward to trying to break that one down for you guys in the reaction video and some film studies moving forward. Appreciate you guys' time, and if you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comments section, number 1. Number 2, if you think other Ravens fans would like to hear my thoughts on how we were able to get this done in Green Bay, a defense that looked drastically different from the first 2 times I saw them against the Detroit Lions. If you think other Ravens fans, would enjoy my thoughts on how we got this done, as well as the film I used to kind of illustrate it, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.